Would you like to know the most important thing you can do to promote your mental and physical health? If so, stay tuned. Hello, my name is Douglas Bloch. I'm an author and mental health educator. Welcome to your Depression Recovery channel, where each week we talk about practical tools and coping strategies for healing from depression and anxiety. The title of today's video is The Most Important Thing You Can Do to Promote Your Health. But before we start, we have to have our normal humor. And, I'm always on the lookout for good jokes. And, I have a lot of jokes about unemployed people, but none of them work. If I were to ask you what is the most important thing that you can do to promote or improve your physical health and emotional well-being, what would you say? Well, if you've been following my videos for a while, the answer would be obvious: exercise. Or maybe you're someone who believes you are what you eat, and you'd say having a good diet. These are critically important, but there's something that is even more important. A number of scientists have recently discovered that the most important thing you can do to improve your health, it sounds simple, is simply to get a good night's sleep. Have you ever wondered why we need to spend a third of our lives sleeping, or why we even need to sleep at all? As someone who tries to be productive and has always got a lot of things going on, a lot of projects, I get really upset that I have to spend, 1/3 of my life sleeping. And no matter what I do to try to cut back, it never works. I always seem to have to sleep 8 to 8.5 hours a day, and I get upset until, of course, I've discovered that sleeping is not just a waste of time. It's not just doing nothing. Matter of fact, when you're sleeping, you're doing something. Your brain is very active. It's cleansing and regenerating itself. And when you don't get that time, a lot of bad things happen in the brain and in the body. One of the most important people doing sleep research on the planet today is a guy named Matthew Walker from Great Britain. He currently runs a sleep lab at UCal Berkeley. And I found out about him by seeing a TED Talk. I think it had 1.4 million views. And so the title of this talk is called Sleep is Your Superpower. Great title. And he starts off the episode with this attention-getting statistic. He says that men who sleep 5 hours a night have significantly smaller testicles than men who sleep 7 hours a night. He then goes on to say that men who sleep 4 to 5 hours a night have the testosterone levels of men who are 10 years older. In other words, when you get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, you actually have the age of someone who's a decade older than you are. And the same is true of women's reproductive health. What lack of sleep does to that. So it's interesting because I just did a video last week on how to age gracefully. Well, it turns out not getting enough sleep does the exact opposite. It makes you older instead of younger. In the video, Walker runs off a list of maladies that are associated with sleep loss. Sleep loss increases the risk of the following: mental illness, obesity, cardiovascular disease, cancer, metabolic syndrome, dementia, and Alzheimer's. And when new research came in that shows that sleep loss also increases the risk of suicide, the Guinness Book of World Records became so alarmed that they banned any further attempts at setting the world record for sleep deprivation. And after that, the World Health Organization listed shift work as a form of a carcinogen. Why? Because, again, sleep disruption, which is caused by shift work, is a carcinogen. Now we can see the impact of sleep disruption globally every year in the spring when 1 billion people involuntarily participate in an experiment called daylight savings time. The clock springs forward and you lose an hour of sleep. Come Monday, there's an increase in heart attacks and auto accidents, and I think a lot of acting out in school, as my wife Joan said when she was a teacher. This is why a lot of people want to get rid of daylight savings time. It's not that they want to always have the clocks back early. They just don't like going back twice a year, because every time there's a shift, it's like having jet lag. So again, such a simple thing caused so many problems. So what is it about sleep that we need, or what does the sleep do that when it doesn't happen, we get these problems? Well, the first thing it does is it helps people learn better. It helps you remember the stuff that happened during the day, and if you're going to learn something the next day, it allows you the preparation to learn that. So it's very good for remembering. It improves your memory, and when you don't get enough sleep, your hippocampus, gets smaller, which is of course the part of the brain that is associated with memory. But more important than that, when we go into this deep sleep every night with these slow waves, the brain cleanses itself. There's some mechanism, which I forgot, that where this fluid goes through all the different parts of the brain and cleanses it from these proteins. They're called amyloid proteins and tau proteins, which are found in Alzheimer's patients, and also other kinds of waste. As a result of the good things that happen when you get enough sleep and the alarmingly bad things that happen when you don't get enough sleep, Walker concludes that sleep is not an optional lifestyle luxury. He calls it a non-negotiable biological necessity. I'll say that again. Non-negotiable biological necessity. In other words, it's not negotiated. You need your sleep. Now, the problem, however, is for me, I've had a sleep disorder since the age of 3, and I'd say at least 30 to 40% of the people I work with have that. And so people with anxiety and depression have disrupted sleep. So what are we going to do about that so we can, avoid all these negative consequences? How do we start to get better sleep to promote health? I said it was the most important thing you can do. Well, here are a couple of things not to do. Don't drink alcohol. I know if you drink alcohol before bedtime, it might make you drowsy and you can fall asleep. But then you wake up in the middle of the night and it causes sleep disruptions. Avoid caffeine a couple hours before bed, and also don't take naps because when you do, your body is completely thrown off and, may wake up in the middle of the night because it thinks you have enough sleep. What to do? First, have a regular routine. Go to sleep at the same time, get up at the same time. I once lived with someone who had bipolar disorder. Oh my goodness. Sleep 11 o'clock one night, 4 in the morning next, 2 in the morning next. Not the way to do it. You have to establish a sleep routine. Regularity is king. And the second thing is to keep your room cool and dark. The body needs to drop its core temperature 2 or 3 degrees. I didn't know that until I watched the video. And the way to do this is keep your room cool, ideally about 65 degrees. And I learned this the hard way. I was in New York many, many years ago giving a couple of lectures at a convention. Well, I didn't want to take the train home from New York City back to the island where my parents lived. So someone said, "Hey, Doug, stay on the second floor of my apartment here in New York. It was cool." And yeah, it wasn't cool. It was 95 degrees that day. And you know how heat rises? Well, guess what? No air conditioning. They left the windows open. Didn't do squat. I lay awake all night, absolutely miserable because it was so darn hot. The next night, I went back to New York. To Long Island, excuse me. Yeah, I left New York City and got back to Long Island and slept in my air condition. These 2 tips and others can be found in a very good book called No More Sleepless Nights by Peter Howry that talks about sleep hygiene. And I talk about sleep hygiene alone also in great detail in my 2014 video called Why Good Sleep is Essential to Heal from Depression. Some of the other things I mentioned are turn off your iPads, computers, iPhones at least an hour before sleep so you don't get that blue light. Use your bed only for sleeping and sex, not for reading long novels. And if you get up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep, after 20 minutes of deep breathing or counting sheep, if that doesn't work, don't stay in bed and ruminate for hours. Get up and do something productive, wash the dishes, clean your office, go ahead and do something else where at least you're occupied and feeling like you're productive. And if all of this doesn't work, the last resort, there are also sleep medications, and that will be the subject of our next video. This has been Douglas Bloch. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly hope you learned something from it. A lot of good information. If you want to subscribe to my channel and get all this information even into the future, click on my photo on the closing credits. You'll be taken to the subscribe page and click on the subscribe button, and also to the right of that, the bell, which means you'll be notified every time I get a new video or put out a new live chat. If you want to become a regular contributor to this channel, there's a Patreon icon. It's a crowdfunding site I use to raise money to help us fund these videos, and you can become a monthly sustainer. And until we meet again, I wish you the best in your mental health recovery, and above all, I wish you a good night's sleep. This has been Douglas Bloch. See you next time.